চল বাই করে দাও বাই করে দাও
হ্যাপি নিউ ইয়ার বাই
এতক্ষণ হয়নি নাকি বাই করে দাও বাই করে দাও বাই করে দাও বাবু বাই হাত মিলে দাও চলো বল বলো মেরি ক্রিসমাস বলো
Very miss you. Auntie, very miss you.
চলো এই পবন চলে যা যখন হাত মিলে যা আয় আসতে রে আসতে
আপনাকে বাই করছি
I'm about to draw your attention. I know you can definitely carry on eating. I know some of you have only just been served, that's fine. But I'd like to draw your attention to the 4 speakers this evening. We're going to start off with Paul Hess, who's going to talk a little bit about Fred and his knowledge of Fred through his life at Eton in Cotton Hall House. Of course, he was also a technician in the chemistry department. It's lovely to have some chemists and their partners here tonight. Also, after that, we've got Catherine, who I introduced earlier, who's going to speak about Udayan, the charity that all this money's going to, so that we can build a Fred Carl Health Centre. And then one of the main sales of the evening, of course, is the art exhibition over there. At the end of the evening, you're very welcome to go and see Polly and do some art purchases if you miss out on your auctions, or even if you don't miss out on your auctions. And then Polly's going to tell you a tale of some very interesting connections that have come up through the art. So we'll start off, if we may, with Paul Hess, housemaster of Cotton Hall House, knew and loved Fred, and was going to talk about it.
Just at the stage now of the school year where housemasters, dames, we have to interview new boys, prospective boys for Cotton Hall. Some of the parents here will remember it well. So you're confronted by these parents, keen, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, quite intimidating, and they ask you lots of questions. One big question as a new housemaster I had to get used to: what is your vision? What's your vision for Cotton Hall? I don't know. Just making it up. I should be actually admitting this to you, the current parents here. But I retract. But I think it does actually take you some time to work out the nature of the house, its ethos, and what you as a housemaster would like to do, what direction. And it's a complex process indeed. It does take some time. I think during my first year, what I've really come to realise about the business of running a boarding house, and what a boarding house is all about, is that it's about character, the formation of boys' character, and it's about community. It's not about winning the junior ties competition, thankfully, because we've had a bit of a disappointment in that regard this week, but we won't go there. And when I talk about community and character, I really think too of Fred, and I can see why he fitted in so wonderfully well to the Cotton Hall community, and why he was such an integral part of it. Fred was indeed a man who thought of and based his life on community, on thinking for others. He had a wonderful outward-looking approach, and that's indeed what we are about this evening, celebrating the way in which he worked for community, his sense of charity and compassion. And I've just noted down a couple of points about some of Fred's, or a couple of Fred's trips to Udayan, and Hazel has asked me to mention that he spent 2 holiday periods volunteering at Udayan Home and School. First being in 2013, he took 4 large suitcases and hundreds of soft toys for the children. Most of the toys, it's important to note, were donated by pupils and parents of Cotton Hall House, and indeed the wider Eton community. Whilst there, Fred taught English in the primary school, but soon moved into other directions. On his second visit in 2014, he paid for and oversaw the development of a large monsoon-proof organic garden. And this, really importantly, meant year-round vegetables for the community, as well as a chance for children to learn valuable gardening skills. And that really is what Fred was all about. But community, but also character. A self-effacing, humble man. Who knew that Fred had been to Oxford, or about all of his achievements, outdoor pursuits? Chatting to him once, at the age of 68, Fred had done the half marathon in just a fraction over 2 hours. Goodness me, he was an athlete. He was a man of accomplishments in so many spheres, but you wouldn't know it unless you talked to him. That was the sort of humility, the self-effacing quality about Fred, which really drew us all to him. And we immediately, I think anyone who met him, warmed to him, responded to him, and that really was very much part of who he was. He showed a tremendous inner strength. I think I mentioned this at his service of Thanksgiving, a kind of calm serenity, which boys again found very attractive. He was a reassuring presence, I think, for Cotton Hall boys during their time, and for current boys as well in their time at the house. And that, I think, that sense of being grounded, that sense of knowing who he was, calm, serene, reassuring presence, is what made him such a deeply and compellingly attractive figure to boys and indeed parents. And that's really why we are here tonight. I must confess, I said to Hazel in the summer, actually, middle of the Michaelmas half, towards the end, no, that's going to be difficult, because it's such an incredibly busy half. We are all here despite that, because, of course, of Hazel's drive and energy and our respect and admiration for her, but also we are here because of Fred and those values that we recognised in him and what he meant to this community. And that's why we have come together in the midst of all the busyness of the Michaelmas half to come and pay tribute to him tonight, to acknowledge the way, in his own wonderfully quiet yet deeply profound way, he touched all of our lives. I imagine that in 15 years' time, a boy at Cotton Hall may be looking at the Fred Carl Cup, which we now have, yes, for services to the community and recognising a boy who's made a contribution to the community, and actually think, who is this Fred Carl fella? And of course, schools, boarding houses have relatively short memories. In 15 years' time, indeed, they'll be saying, who is this Paul Hess fella? Yes, that's right. Who is this William Morgan? Headmaster might still be here. I'm sure the headmaster will still be here. They may not know who Fred is personally, but I hope that boy will still very strongly feel Fred's legacy in a caring and compassionate and kind boarding house, and that Cotton Hall in those 15 years, at that time period, will still reflect Fred's legacy as a man of great principle and great integrity. And it's a great pleasure and privilege for us as a boarding house community to pay tribute to him this evening. Thank you.
My lords, ladies and gentlemen, it is my somewhat unenviable privilege to wrest you away from these lovely surroundings and transport you to one of Calcutta's oldest slums. Imagine, if you will, a suburb in which 70,000 inhabitants struggle to survive on an expanse of land scarcely the size of 2 football stadia. A place with not one tree per 1,000 inhabitants, not a single butterfly or bird apart from the vultures and crows. A place where children did not even know what a bush or a pond was, where the air was so laden with carbon dioxide and sulphur that pollution killed at least one member of every family, where the monsoon transformed the filthy alleyways into lakes of foul mud, and where all the diseases of malnutrition and virtually non-existent sanitation flourished, among them leprosy. It was into the least accessible reaches of this slum, paradoxically named City of Joy, that in 1970 an Englishman by the name of James Stevens ventured, armed only with the most basic Bengali and a truck borrowed from Mother Teresa. His objective, to persuade a number of lepers to part with their children so that he could take them to a healthier environment and care for them. By some miracle, he managed to overcome the parents' suspicions, and that first night was able to take 9 boys and 2 little girls to accommodation he had rented in Barrackpur, a lush suburb with ponds and trees and clean air. 6 of the children were already exhibiting symptoms of leprosy. All were traumatized by the life they had previously led. Within a year, the number of children had reached 100, Land was bought for a school, a dispensary and residential cottages in which to provide these children with a new life. He called the home Udayan, which means dawn or resurrection. When in 1970 James undertook this extraordinary step towards creating a centre for the rehabilitation of the children of lepers, it was because Mother Teresa had told him that out of all the people she served, they were the ones most in need. Udayan has come a long way since then. But the plight of lepers has not. The Indian government would have us believe that leprosy is well on its way to being eradicated. Experience shows otherwise. Records from the National Leprosy Eradication Programme's annual report show that in the year 2016 to 17, there were 11,236 fresh cases in West Bengal alone, and these are generally taken to be very conservative figures. The City of Joy is no longer quite the dreadful slum that it was, thanks largely to the French author Dominique Lapierre, founder of our charity. But lepers are still often shunned even by their families and seek refuge in colonies, and people still hide themselves away for fear of the ostracism and victimization that diagnosis may bring. They survive by sifting through rubbish dumps. They beg, they steal, they prostitute themselves for as long as the telltale signs of the disease can be concealed. This is probably not the place or the time in which to go into the dreadful lesions and suppurating sores of the final stages of leprosy, or the insanity that can beset women who have passed their sell-by date as prostitutes. Suffice it to say that life in these colonies holds little hope. It is from such colonies that Udayan draws its children. Some have leprosy. Nearly all are suffering from malnutrition. Leprosy is curable with multi-drug therapy. Malnutrition is combated with a nutritious meal 3 times a day. Udayan provides children who are often ill, rejected by their peers, and without any future prospects with medical care, accommodation, food, education, and training in vocational skills so that ultimately they can support not only themselves, but their extended family. The home has the potential to take 350 children. At present, because of lack of funds, it has only 225. And the medical care they receive, although just about adequate, leaves much to be desired. A doctor visits once a week. There used to be 2. There is no properly trained resident nurse. What we could really do, of course, is a dame. Imagine a sick bay with no hospital beds. Imagine you are a sick child already scarred by the trauma of becoming untouchable, staring at a ceiling with mildew on it, a floor and walls that cannot be properly washed down, and lacking the most basic medical equipment. Children with leprosy are treated at the Leprosy Mission Hospital. If they need hospitalizing for other reasons, they are taken to local hospitals. In theory, some care is free. In reality, much treatment costs money which is not always available. These are the kind of needs that touch Fred's heart, and which we hope very much will touch your hearts this evening. It remains just for me to thank you all for being here, to thank Hazel for her wonderful initiative and her team for making it come true, and to say that if you have any questions about Udayan, please feel free to come and seek me out. Thank you so much.
In Chiswick Mall, the area was partly industrial, partly slums, with pockets of grand houses like those along the Mall. The vicarage was chaotic. My mother mother hadn't a clue. There were chickens on the kitchen table, cats and dogs stealing food, and streams of refugees from Europe, partly because her father, the vicar, was a German Jew himself. To cap it all, bombs started falling. The escape for a child was into art, and Anthea's life was already peopled with artists like Julian Trevelyan, his wife Anne, and later his wife Mary Fenton, and their friend Henry Moore. After art school at Chelsea in the early 1950s and a wedding to Pick Jebb suddenly cancelled, Anthea fled to India to visit her recently married sister. She remembered seeing a bearded man asleep at the Bombay airport. He was probably drunk. He was my father. He had been demobbed in India when, a few months later, they met again on a ship taking them from South Africa to Southampton. They went to the fancy dress ball together, and so inevitably they got married. The sketchbook pages over there cover most of her life from about 1960 till about the year 2000 when Donald died. There was London, the west coast of Scotland, because he was a proper Scot, was taught with a red beard and played the bagpipes, and the West Country and Chiswick Mall. Her house on the Mall was sold last summer, a year after she died, and all the things in it had been given to her grandchildren. She left everything to 19 of them. And if they weren't cleared by the grandchildren in 2 days, everything went to auction or to the skip. I'm very glad these things didn't go to the skip. They might well have done. Somebody looked at them, and by an amazing chance and a great act of generosity, she has been given the opportunity from beyond the grave to help with Fred's project at Wood I Am, and she would have loved it. In fact, I'm pretty sure she had a hand in arranging this. Thank you.
For me to add, but I want to say that Mum, Alex, found Anthea's sketchbooks, framed them, gave them to Hazel, and not knowing that Hazel had already met Anthea, had stayed in her house, and not knowing that Anthea's grandson Joseph was at Eton and indeed in Cotton Hall. So the whole thing's completely serendipitous. So please come, and for a very good price tonight, £50 or £80 or more, should you feel excited about it, come and find me and I will give you a red dot. Thank you.